Lost in the Atlantic, the true story of Hy-Brasil. Imagine sailing through the vast, unbroken expanse of the Atlantic. The waves rise and fall, the horizon stretching endlessly before you, until, through the mist, an island emerges. A land spoken of in whispers, appearing only once every 7 years before vanishing again into legend. This is Hy-Brasil, often called Ireland's Atlantis. But what is the truth behind this phantom isle? Could it have been a real place, charted by explorers yet lost to time? Or is it nothing more than a sailor's dream, a mirage conjured by mist and longing? How does an entire island vanish without a trace? For centuries, Hy-Brasil was marked on maps, its location carefully recorded by cartographers, its shores supposedly glimpsed by sailors. And yet, today, it is gone. No ruins, no remnants, nothing but legend. Did the ocean swallow it whole? Was it ever real at all? Or is there a secret hidden beneath the waves waiting to be uncovered? But perhaps the most unsettling truth about Hy-Brasil is not that it disappeared, but that it was ever there at all. How did it find its way onto maps centuries before cartographers demanded proof? Why did sailors set out time and time again, convinced they had seen its shores? If it was a mistake, it was one that endured for generations. And if it was real, where did it go? Maybe the island is still out there, shrouded in mist, waiting for the day it rises from the waves once more. Or maybe, like all great legends, it was never meant to be found. Join us as we dive beneath the waves, trace the vanished maps, and unravel the mystery of an island lost to time and the endless expanse of the Atlantic. A name on the wind. Hy-Brasil, a name carried on the wind, murmured in the hush of ancient tales, a phantom isle adrift in the mists of time, glimpsed only once every 7 years before slipping back into oblivion. Some called it a paradise, a land of wisdom and wonder. Others, a ghostly mirage conjured by the restless sea. But where did this legend begin? And why, for centuries, did sailors and scholars alike swear that an island they could never grasp was undeniably real? The origins of Hy-Brasil stretch deep into the fabric of Irish folklore. Long before it appeared on maps, the island was spoken of in legend, much like Tir na Nog or Magmel, otherworldly realms that lay beyond the western seas. It was often described as a paradise, a land untouched by time, ruled by beings of great wisdom and prosperity. In some tales, it was home to a mighty king or an ancient god, while in others, it was an island of learned men, protectors of hidden knowledge. In all versions, Hy-Brasil was more than just land. It was an idea, a symbol of something just beyond reach. The very name Hy-Brasil is believed to derive from the Irish Hy-Brasil, meaning descendants of Bresal, a name associated with an ancient clan in Ireland. Some scholars speculate that Bresal himself was a mythological high king, a ruler of a golden age lost to time. Others suggest that the name was later adapted to sound similar to the land of Brazil, though the two share no connection. The island's most defining trait was its elusive nature. In folklore, it was said to be perpetually shrouded in mist, revealing itself only once every 7 years. And even then, reaching it was nearly impossible. Some stories tell of sailors who caught sight of its shores but were unable to land, as if the island itself rejected their presence. Others claimed they had stepped foot upon it, only to awaken back at sea, as if their journey had been nothing more than a dream. But for the people of Ireland, Hy-Brasil was not just a legend. It was a reflection of something deeper, a belief that beyond the known world, beyond the reach of men, there were places where time stood still, a land seen but never claimed, a prize given only to those chosen by fate. These ideas were not unique to one legend, but part of an older tradition, a belief that the earth itself held secrets, and that some lands were never meant to be found. However, Hy-Brasil was unlike any other lost land, Unlike Atlantis, which was said to have been swallowed by the sea, or the sunken kingdom of Cantreaguelod, it was not destroyed. It simply ceased to be seen. The island did not sink, nor was it erased from memory. Instead, it faded into legend, as if it had never been there at all. What makes Hy-Brasil stand apart from so many other mythical lands is the sheer number of people who claim to have seen it. While some legends exist purely in folklore, Hy-Brasil persisted in accounts from sailors, explorers, and scholars who swore that it was real. Those who saw it described high cliffs, stone structures, and landscapes unlike any known island in the Atlantic. Some even claimed to have landed, only for the island to vanish when they tried to return. Others saw nothing at all, sailing over waters where land was said to exist, finding only open sea. This raises the question, why did so many believe in an island that could never be found? Was it a case of mistaken identity, where land was sighted but incorrectly recorded? Or did something else fuel the mystery? Reports of phantom islands were not uncommon in the age of exploration. The island of St. Brendan, named after the legendary Irish monk who supposedly discovered a paradise in the Atlantic in the 6th century, appeared on maps for centuries before being dismissed as myth. The sunken island of Friesland, thought to lie west of Iceland, was recorded by cartographers until it too was revealed to be nothing but ocean. Even as navigation improved, sailors continued to report land where no land should be. Some historians suggest that Hy-Brasil may have been an optical illusion, the result of atmospheric conditions causing distant land to appear where there was none. A phenomenon known as Fata Morgana, an extreme mirage caused by temperature differences over the ocean, can create the illusion of floating islands or towering cliffs on the horizon. If Hy-Brasil was not a physical place, could it have been a trick of the light, one that convinced sailors across generations that land was there, only to disappear when they sailed closer? The belief in the island was so strong that even in the 19th century, the island was still being described in poetic terms. The Irish poet Gerald Griffin, inspired by the legend, wrote,
"Men thought it a region of sunshine and rest, and they called it Hy-Brasil, the Isle of the Blessed."
He wrote this in his poem Hy-Brasil, the Isle of the Blessed, a romanticized reflection of the myth that had captivated Ireland for centuries. Even as navigation improved and the world was mapped with greater accuracy, the idea of Hy-Brasil as a paradise lost remained deeply ingrained in Irish culture. But if Hy-Brasil was nothing more than an illusion, why did it find its way onto maps? Who first claimed to have seen it? And why did cartographers across Europe confidently mark its location for centuries? To understand that, we must look at the records themselves, documents that transformed a legend into something explorers truly believed they could find. The Cartographer's Mirage, mapping a vanishing land. The earliest known appearance of Hy-Brasil on a map dates back to 1325, when Genoese cartographer Angelino Dulcet featured an island labelled Brasil, west of Ireland. Dulcet, active during the early 14th century, is recognised for his contributions to the Majorcan cartographic school. His 1339 Portolan chart is among the oldest attributed to this school, showcasing regions beyond the Mediterranean, including parts of Northern Europe and Africa. This inclusion of Brasil suggests that even in the early 14th century, tales of this mysterious land had permeated seafaring communities. By 1375, the famed Catalan Atlas, created by Abraham Cresques, also depicted Ilha de Brasil in the Atlantic Ocean, further cementing its place in medieval geography. Cresques, a Jewish cartographer from Majorca, was commissioned by Prince John of Aragon to produce this comprehensive atlas, which combined geographical knowledge with myth and legend. The representation of Ilha de Brasil indicates the widespread acceptance of the island's existence during that period. The island's cartographic presence persisted into the 15th century. In 1436, Venetian cartographer Andrea Bianco included Insula de Brasil on his nautical chart, positioning it among a group of islands in the Atlantic. Bianco, known for his detailed Portolan charts, contributed significantly to the maritime knowledge of his time. His inclusion of Insula de Brasil reflects the enduring belief in the island's existence among navigators and mapmakers. As exploration expanded and more of the world's oceans were charted, the depiction of Hy-Brasil began to change. In some maps, its location shifted, while in others, its size and shape morphed. Despite numerous expeditions failing to find concrete evidence of the island, it continued to appear on maps throughout the 16th and 17th centuries. Notably, in 1570, Flemish cartographer Abraham Ortelius included Brazil on his map Europa, placing it to the west of Ireland. Ortelius, renowned for his work Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, often considered the first modern atlas, incorporated both contemporary knowledge and enduring myths into his maps. Similarly, in 1595, the esteemed cartographer Gerardus Mucaitu featured Brazil on his map of Europe, maintaining its position near Ireland. Mucaitu's projection revolutionized cartography, and his inclusion of Hy-Brasil underscores the island's persistent presence in the geographical understanding of the time. The question arises, why would cartographers include an island that no one could definitively find? One possibility is that mapmakers relied on sailors' reports and anecdotal evidence, perpetuating the island's existence through tradition and hearsay. Additionally, the practice of copying from older maps without verification could have contributed to Hy-Brasil's prolonged presence in cartographic records. This phenomenon underscores the complexities of early mapmaking, where the line between documented knowledge and folklore was often blurred. One example of this is the Piri-Reis map of 1513, which included coastlines and landmasses copied from older sources, some of which were already outdated or inaccurate. Piri-Reis, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer, compiled his world map using around 20 different sources, including maps from Christopher Columbus and earlier Arab and Greek geographers. His map is notable for its depiction of an extended South American coastline and a supposed landmass resembling Antarctica, despite Antarctica not being officially discovered until 1820. This illustrates how cartographers often relied on pre-existing charts, incorporating lands that had been recorded in earlier works, sometimes inaccurately or based on myth. The Piri-Reis map, like many others of its time, demonstrates how cartographic tradition could perpetuate errors or speculative geography, much like Hy-Brasil continued appearing on maps despite lacking concrete evidence. Hy-Brasil's journey across centuries of maps and charts serves as a testament to the human penchant for wonder and the allure of the unknown. It exemplifies how myths can intertwine with documented history, leaving an indelible mark on our cultural and geographical understanding. Why do you think Hy-Brasil remained on maps for so long, despite the lack of concrete evidence? Could there be truths hidden within the legends, or does this highlight the challenges of early cartography? Phantom Shores, the voyages to Hy-Brasil. The earliest recorded attempts to locate Hy-Brasil came from the English port of Bristol. By the late 15th century, Bristol had become one of England's leading maritime hubs, and its merchants, fiercely independent traders and shipowners, funded several voyages in search of Hy-Brasil, or Brazil as it was sometimes called. In 1480, an expedition set sail from Bristol with the explicit purpose of finding Hy-Brasil, yet no records of its return survive. The following year, in 1481, another ship departed from Bristol, once again seeking the legendary island. Whether they returned with news or empty-handed remains a mystery. However, the fact that multiple voyages were launched in search of the island suggests that belief in its existence was strong enough to justify expensive expeditions. The legend of Hy-Brasil persisted among Bristol sailors, and only a decade later, John Cabot, also known as Giovanni Caboto, an Italian navigator sailing under the English flag, departed Bristol in 1497 in search of new lands across the Atlantic. Some scholars believe that Cabot's voyage, which led him to the coast of Newfoundland, may have been partially inspired by the tales of Hy-Brasil. One of the strongest pieces of evidence linking Bristol sailors to Hy-Brasil comes from a letter written by the Spanish diplomat Pedro de Ayala in 1498. Reporting to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain, Ayala wrote,
"The land found by John Cabot had been discovered in the past by the men from Bristol who found Brazil."
If Bristol merchants had indeed found Hy-Brasil before Cabot's voyage, what exactly had they seen? Was it a misidentification of Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, or had they genuinely caught sight of something unexplained? Nearly 2 centuries later, a Scottish captain named John Nisbet claimed to have not only seen Hy-Brasil, but landed upon its shores. According to reports, in 1674, while sailing from France to Ireland, Nisbet and his crew encountered an island that was not on their maps. As the ship approached, the mist parted, revealing a lush green land with towering cliffs. 4 crew members disembarked and reportedly spent an entire day exploring before returning to the ship. Upon setting foot on the island, the sailors reported encountering dense woodlands and at its heart, an ancient stone castle. Inside, they met 3 elderly men who communicated in an archaic language. Despite the language barrier, the men extended hospitality to the visitors, offering them gifts of gold and silver. The sailors also observed an abundance of large black rabbits, unlike any they had seen before, freely roaming the island. The story was widely circulated, yet its credibility remains highly questionable. Many historians suspect that the account originated from Richard Head, an Irish writer best known for his book The Western Wonder, 1674, which describes an island matching Hy-Brasil's description. Some argue that Head's account was pure fiction, designed to entertain rather than document a real discovery. However, whether he fabricated the story or drew from existing sailors' tales remains uncertain. Not all encounters with Hy-Brasil come from foreign sailors. In 1684, the Irish historian and scholar Roderick O'Flaherty recorded one of the most intriguing accounts of all, an account from a man who claimed to have set foot on the island himself. According to O'Flaherty's book, A Cartographical Description of West, or H.I. Connaught, a man named Murrow O'Lowy claimed that he spent 2 days on Hy-Brasil. O'Lowy, a resident of the Galway coast, reported seeing familiar landmarks from the island, such as the Aran Islands and Golem Head, leading him to believe that he was not far from home. He spoke of a rich and fertile land, unlike anything he had ever seen, yet when he attempted to return, the island was gone. O'Flaherty wrote,
"There is now living Murrow O'Lowy, who imagines he was himself personally on Hy-Brasil for 2 days and saw out of it the islands of Aran, Golem Head and other places of the western shore, by which he was convinced it was Hy-Brasil he saw."
While skeptics dismiss his claims as a hallucination or an exaggeration, others wonder whether he may have stumbled upon a real, yet unidentified, landmass. What did he see? Were these sailors merely chasing myths, or did they truly glimpse something real, yet misunderstood? Did the Bristol expeditions of the 15th century mistake the western coast of Ireland or parts of North America for Hy-Brasil? Could Nisbet's Island have been nothing more than an embellishment? And was Murrow O'Lowy's claim merely a trick of the mist, or was there something out there just beyond the reach of history? The stories of Hy-Brasil's expeditions leave us with more questions than answers. Whether truth or illusion, the legend of the vanishing island persisted, strong enough that sailors continued to search for it, even as maps evolved and the unknown corners of the world slowly disappeared. The rising and the fading, theories behind the hidden isle. For centuries, sailors swore they had seen Hy-Brasil. It was mapped, sought after, and even claimed to have been visited. Yet today, no trace of it remains. So what were these sailors really seeing? Was it a land lost to time, a trick of the light, or something more mysterious? Several theories attempt to explain the legend of the Mystery Island. Some are rooted in geography and natural phenomena, others in cartographic tradition and human perception, and a few venture into the realm of lost civilizations and the unknown. Each theory tells part of the story, but does any truly hold the answer? One prevalent theory suggests that sightings of Hy-Brasil resulted from optical illusions, specifically a phenomenon known as Fata Morgana. This complex mirage occurs when layers of air at different temperatures refract light, creating distorted images of distant objects. Such illusions can cause landmasses to appear elevated, inverted, or even to vanish, potentially leading sailors to perceive non-existent islands on the horizon. The west coast of Ireland, with its frequent mists and variable weather, provides conditions conducive to these atmospheric phenomena. Similar illusions have historically misled explorers, as in the case of the Croker Mountains, a non-existent range reported by Sir John Ross in 1818, later understood to be a mirage. Another explanation posits that Hy-Brasil was a misidentification of known geographical features. The Porcupine Bank, a submerged plateau approximately 200 kilometers west of Ireland, has been suggested as a possible source of the legend. Discovered in 1862 by the HMS Porcupine, this underwater elevation lies about 200 meters below sea level at its highest point. In 1870, a paper presented to the Geological Society of Ireland proposed that Porcupine Bank might be the remnants of the fabled island, suggesting that during the periods of lower sea levels, it could have been exposed above the ocean surface, appearing as an island to ancient mariners. The persistence of Hy-Brasil on maps from the 14th to the 19th centuries reflects the challenges of early cartography. Mapmakers often relied on sailors' reports, second-hand accounts, and existing charts, leading to the repetition of features that were never independently verified. Once an island like Hy-Brasil was recorded, it became entrenched in geographical tradition, copied from map to map, even when no one could confirm its existence. This phenomenon was not unique to Hy-Brasil. Phantom islands such as Friesland and Sandy Island were also mapped for centuries before being removed. Friesland, first charted on the Zeno map of 1558, continued appearing on maps well into the 17th century, despite never being found. Similarly, Sandy Island, first recorded in the 18th century, remained on official nautical maps until it was disproven by satellite imaging in 2012. These examples show how cartographers, rather than erase a possibly real location, often erred on the side of inclusion, keeping the myth alive long after it should have faded. While natural explanations may account for some Hy-Brasil sightings, alternative theories suggest the island was something far greater, the remnant of an ancient civilization, a lost land swallowed by time, or even a place of hidden knowledge guarded from the modern world. These ideas, though widely debated, have intrigued scholars, explorers, and researchers alike. One of the most enduring theories is that Hy-Brasil was part of a lost civilization that once existed in the Atlantic Ocean, much like the legendary Atlantis described by Plato in 360 BC. This idea gained traction in the 19th and early 20th centuries, when researchers like Ignatius Donnelly, in his 1882 book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, proposed that remnants of an advanced prehistoric society might still exist beneath the ocean. While Donnelly focused on Atlantis, his work influenced later researchers who speculated that Hy-Brasil might have been another fragment of this lost world. A more recent proponent of this theory was Charles Berlitz, who in the Bermuda Triangle, 1974, linked Hy-Brasil and other missing islands to cataclysmic geological events. Berlitz suggested that sudden tectonic shifts or tsunamis could have submerged Hy-Brasil, explaining why sailors reported seeing it before it vanished from history. Geological studies, such as those conducted on Porcupine Bank by the Geological Survey of Ireland, GSI, in the late 19th century, support the idea that portions of the Atlantic seafloor may have once been above water before sea levels rose, lending some credibility to these theories. However, no archaeological ruins have ever been found to confirm them. In a 2007 study published by the University of Birmingham, geologist Dr. Simon Fitch explored the idea that parts of the British Isles were once connected to a vast landmass now submerged beneath the sea. This area, known as Doggerland, stretched from the east coast of Britain to the Netherlands and Denmark before it was gradually consumed by rising sea levels around 6000 BC. Could Hy-Brasil have been part of a similar lost landmass that survived these rising sea levels before vanishing beneath the waves? Some researchers, including marine geologist Dr. Anthony Harding, argue that ancient myths often contain grains of truth about real prehistoric landscapes that have since disappeared. If Hy-Brasil was ever real, it may have been a temporary island formation exposed during periods of lower sea levels, only to be eroded and submerged over time. Other interpretations suggest that Hy-Brasil was not just a physical island, but a center of great wisdom, learning, or even supernatural power. One unusual reference comes from Gerald of Wales, Giraldus Cambrensis, a 12th century chronicler and cleric who wrote extensively on the wonders of Ireland. In his 1188 work, Topographia Hibernica, The History and Topography of Ireland, he described strange lands and islands that lay beyond the Western Sea, sometimes appearing and disappearing with the mist. While he does not name Hy-Brasil explicitly, later scholars, including J.P. Mallory, have suggested that these descriptions could have contributed to the legend. Gerald spoke of a blessed land beyond the waves, a place of wisdom and enlightenment, inhabited by beings of great knowledge who kept their realm hidden from ordinary mortals. The belief that Hy-Brasil was a sacred or supernatural island aligns with medieval Irish folklore, where islands across the Western Sea were often depicted as otherworldly realms. In Lebor Gabala Eren, the Book of the Taking of Ireland, a medieval text compiling Irish myths, the concept of islands beyond the known world as refuges of divine knowledge and hidden wisdom frequently appears. Some historians, such as Dr. Mark Williams, author of Ireland's Immortals, A History of the Gods of Irish Myth, 2016, argue that these myths likely influenced the later perception of Hy-Brasil as more than just a geographical location. It became a symbol of lost knowledge, a place sought by those in search of wisdom or forbidden secrets. More recently, archaeologist Graham Hancock, in his 1995 book Fingerprints of the Gods, speculated that lost civilizations may have preserved knowledge of advanced astronomy, navigation, and engineering, hidden away from the modern world. While Hancock does not specifically mention Hy-Brasil, his theories have been used by other researchers to suggest that the island may have been a retreat for ancient scholars, or a location shrouded in secrecy. One of the more unusual modern connections to Hy-Brasil comes from the Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980, often described as Britain's Roswell. During the event, US Air Force officer Jim Penniston claimed to have encountered a mysterious craft that transmitted a sequence of binary code into his mind. When later decoded, part of this message allegedly contained coordinates matching the supposed location of Hy-Brasil. The case remains controversial, and skeptics argue that the coordinates were coincidental, but it has fueled speculation that Hy-Brasil was more than just a myth, perhaps a location of great mystery that continues to defy explanation. Vanished shores, endless questions. Hy-Brasil has led us through centuries of myth, maps, and mystery. We've uncovered its roots in Irish folklore, traced its presence on ancient charts, and followed the sailors and scholars who sought it. We've explored theories, from optical illusions to lost lands, from cartographic errors to whispers of hidden civilizations. And yet, for all our searching, the island remains as elusive as ever, a shape in the mist, just out of reach. But perhaps that is the nature of great mysteries. Some say that Hy-Brasil never existed, that it was simply a mirage, a mistake, a story told too many times. But I like to think that, in some way, it was real, whether as a physical land that once stood above the waves or as something more, a reflection of our need to believe in the unknown, a symbol of the lost knowledge of our ancestors, or a place that exists not on maps but in the imagination of those who seek it. These legends mattered to the people who told them. Somewhere in history, a sailor gazed at the horizon and swore that he saw a hidden shore just beyond his reach. A cartographer placed ink to parchment, marking an island he had never seen, yet believed in all the same. And perhaps someone watching this video right now has an ancestor who was part of the search for Hy-Brasil, one of the many who set sail for a place that was always just beyond the edge of the world. And that's the beauty of these tales. They remind us that not everything has been found. Even today, there are places on this earth we have yet to set foot upon. And if history teaches us anything, it's that the unknown is never as far away as we think. Hy-Brasil is only one mystery of many. There are countless other lost lands, forgotten legends, and hidden histories waiting to be explored. But those stories are for another time. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. What do you think of the legend of Hy-Brasil? Could it have been real, or was it always destined to remain a story? Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Take care, friends.